and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 254th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show. A story of storytellers, a show of storytellers. I've been looking forward to this show for quite some time, and you'll find out in just a few minutes of why I'm so excited about it. But before we get to introductions of our guests of honor this evening, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. That, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate's at it again. In the latest Freestyle Live, they introduced the latest creation from the minds of Drew Estate. Yes, it is the Papas Fritas H99. Yes, H99 is now in the Papas Fritas size, a historic size for all Drew Estate aficionados. A fantastic little blend, all condensed in one of your favorite vitolas from Drew Estate. The Papas Fritas H99 is now available at Drew Diplomat retailers. Check out your local Drew Diplomat retailer today and pick up some H99 Papas Fritas. Looking forward to everything, all things Drew Estate coming up for the rest of 2023. Stay and pay attention to the Freestyle Lives, and also come and look forward to seeing them in 2024. They have announced they will officially be returning to the PCA Trade Show. We look forward to seeing our friends at Drew Estate at the next PCA Trade Show in 2024. We'll be talking about the 2023 PCA Trade Show a little bit more this evening. So without further ado, let's introduce tonight's guest of honor, sponsored by United Cigar. Smoke one today and start living united. Miss Ash Ott of Ashes with Ash. Ash, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time. You're probably sick of hearing me say it. I've said it like 10 times.
I know. I'm so excited.
So this is good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, again, thanks for joining us this evening. We're going to be talking a little bit more about your podcast and your journey through cigars, which I'm really looking forward to learning about a little bit. I know a little bit of something because I've been following your show for quite some time. But it'll be nice to have it walk us through everything here on the show. But as customary on my show, I always ask my guest of honor to select the cigar that I'm going to be smoking. But before I ask you to do that, what it looks like you've already lit up. What are you smoking tonight?
You know, it's funny. I don't know about this cigar, and I should, because I just walked into the shop and I saw it. Nobody told me about it. It's called Pap Cigar Company. So
Okay.
It's my grandfather's shop cigar, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it looks like it was made by Rocky Patel. Don't know.
Oh, that's cool.
So far, it's awesome, though. I'll have to let you guys know once I learn more about it, what it all is.
Fantastic. That's kind of a cool experience, though, like not having any preconceived, well, maybe some preconceived notions, but like just lighting up a cigar and just like enjoying it for what it is. I love to do that. We used to, when I worked retail, we used to do that. One of us would go into the humidor, take a cigar off the shelf, take the band off, everything, and then hand it to somebody and say, smoke it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Cool exercise.
Yeah, seriously. I need to do that.
Yeah. It really kind of like like I said, it takes like the preconceived notion out of it.
Right.
And you just kind of focus on the tobacco and like whether or not like it hits your palate and how it hits your palate and the flavors that you get from it. It's pretty exciting.
Exactly. Yeah, because a lot of people they see a band, they don't like the color of the band or what it looks like or the name. They've heard bad things about it. So yeah,
Right.
It would be a really fun way to try new stuff that you usually wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like if like someone said like, oh, I don't really like Rocky Patel, like, well, shoot, that cigar is like already out of their, their quote unquote wheelhouse. And it's like, dang it, this is a really good cigar. They could have actually really enjoyed it, So that's why it's always fun. But here are the choices I wanted to put in front of you, and whatever you choose, again, it's your choice. I will smoke it. I will gladly smoke it. I'm excited to share a cigar with you tonight. So the first one is the Plasencia Almaforte Six Toe, the hexagonal, which is this is the green label one, not the Almaforte.
Good one.
And then one that unfortunately is discontinued, but is still one of my all-time favorites. And I have plenty of hidden in my stash. The Avo Domain 50.
Oh my gosh! All right.
And then a limited edition special cigar from last year. That I still have a couple left, but I thought this would be an occasion perhaps to smoke it. But again, it's up to you. I have the Winston Churchill from Davidoff, the limited edition 2022, which is also a Perfecto.
Oh man,
So So
All right.
whatever you would like for me to smoke, I will smoke.
Those are all really awesome options. I'm gonna have to go with the Avo domain. I do love that one.
I love it. I'm so sad they were.
Okay.
I was so upset when they discontinued it. I went really crazy. It was also COVID,
Yeah.
so I bought way too many of these. But that's okay because now I have
Yeah.
now I have some to enjoy for a while.
Yeah,
But
it's
I love.
actually when I was working at Davidoff, this guy in California called the store to see if we had any left because they were all running out, and he he got all of the ones that we had left. But then I'd never had one before, so I asked the guy that I was working with, "What's this cigar all about? Why does this guy want it all?" And then he had one and gave it to me, and it was like my favorite. And I was sad that the guy took them all, but I understand. So good.
Yeah, Klaus Kellner and I were talking about this cigar specifically because I asked him, when he was still working for Davidoff. Now he opened his own place and everything, but his own factory. But I asked him, what his favorite non-Davidoff was, and he's like, man, it's got to be the Avo domain. I was like, oh man, me too. And he's like, the 50 size. I was like, yeah, the 50 size. He's like, oh, so I was so sad. I was so sad when they discontinued the cigar.
I wonder why they did.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
I know they had to make way for the Caribe that they released during
Yeah.
COVID, but they didn't have to.
Yeah, they didn't have to.
There's a couple of other Avo products I could have gotten rid of, in my opinion. But
yeah, I agree.
so awesome. Well, while I'm getting this going, looking forward to smoking with you. Just wanted to kind of I thought this would be a funny story to start off with. So as you and I were working out the logistics for tonight's show and everything, you sent me your email and your number and everything. I was like, all right, I'll give you a call. We'll hash some stuff out. And then I gave you a call and I was like, oh, it's the wrong number. I texted you back or DM'd you back, and I was like, hey, yeah, I think you gave me the wrong number, blah, blah. Because someone answered, and I thought they were, I honestly, this is what's really going to be really funny. And I'm really going to expose my ignorance here. I thought they were speaking Japanese. Like, I was like, oh man, I totally got the wrong number. This is crazy. I thought they were speaking Japanese. Turns out it was your roommate who's not Japanese,
right?
But was rather speaking Greek.
Speaking Greek, yeah.
Okay.
She saw my phone and a random number called. She figured it was spam, so she answered it like that. And I was downstairs, and then when I came back up, she was on the phone with somebody else and got distracted and totally forgot to tell me that she answered my phone in a funny way. I was expecting a call. She was like, what's only ever spam that calls you? And I was like, I know. Oh, well. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right. No, I just thought it was funny. It kind of reminded me. I don't know if you've. I'm a huge film buff, so I apologize. I don't know. Have you seen Notting Hill?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So there's early scene in it where Hugh Grant, the main character, has a roommate that's a little nuts. I'm not saying your roommate's nuts. But same situation. He picks up the phone, answers, doesn't take the message, and it's a couple days later. And it's Julia Roberts who calls the guy, calls Hugh Grant, and he doesn't remember, remember the message, and it creates this hilarity ensues, unfortunately. So kind of reminded me of that scene a little bit. So I mean, does your roommate just randomly grab your phone and talk Greek to strangers? Is that how she practices? Duolingo isn't enough for her, or what?
I know, right? I guess when she's feeling funny.
Is she actually from Greek, or she just knows it because that's her heritage? Or now I'm fascinated. Now I'm all into this.
Yeah, her grandparents are Greek, so they're from Greece.
Okay.
But yeah, she just kind of learned a little bit from them.
Awesome. Do you know any additional languages other than English?
I really don't. I've learned them before. And it never really sticks with me.
Just part of school or anything. What did you study in school?
Yeah, I mean, Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to get back into it and really actually focus on it to make it stick in my brain. But I never let anything in high school stick.
I highly recommend Duolingo.
Yeah.
I've been brushing up. So my youngest son, my 3-year-old son, is learning Spanish. Yes,
cool.
I said that. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll brush up. And so like I'm on like this 176-day streak of like on Duolingo of like learning, like
Hell yeah.
refreshing my Spanish and everything. Of course, now like I say that and I've been telling people that, and like everyone at PCA is going to be starting to talk Spanish to me. I'm like, God damn it, this sucks. I'm not going to be able. No, I'm not ready for that.
You can do it. You can do it.
I read it really well. I can read it extremely well, and I can actually write it pretty decently. It's when I'm and people start talking to me, I can understand it to a certain extent pretty well.
Yeah.
It's this part that sucks. It just does,
getting it out there.
just getting it out. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't work well. So, we'll see how it goes. But do you have any idea like what wrapper's on that cigar? I know you said you don't really know anything about it. Like, what do you think it is?
I think Honduras.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure. It is like really, it's dark. It's a really good like Maduro. So far, it's just kind of like
that's what it looks like
and sweet. Oh, it's really good.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, I am. I'm shocked. Not really, but.
Okay, cool. Does Pabst have any other additional house blends or anything that they have, or is that the only one that you know of?
Yeah, this is the only one. They like DBL has made like special event cigars for us before, but not really that we sell in the shop. If we had some left over, we might. But yeah, DBL's rolled a couple things for us.
That's sweet. We're going to get into Pabst and a couple other things here. And so why don't we dive into tonight's major point, which is always brought to you by the people. Yes, cigar people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is. But behind the fun is a motivation for service, a motivation for giving back from the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series. Phoebe Cousins' Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. So, Ash, I wanted to just kind of, again, give the opportunity to I really just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about your background and everything. For everyone out there, you host the Ashes with Ash podcast. It's and if I miss anything about describing what it is, Ash, please feel free to correct me, but it's basically it's storytelling through the world of cigars and the people around it. And that doesn't necessarily mean manufacturers and retailers. That means basically consumers too. And it's just and you've done this for I think you just celebrated 3 years, right?
2 years.
2 years. Oh gosh. Yeah. Okay. So 2 years of doing this, and you've had some wonderful stories which we'll get into and everything. But does that sum it up pretty well, or is there anything else that you would add to that kind of description of it?
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. The only thing is I think I mostly have women on my podcast. Like I mostly interview women in the industry. Of course, a few awesome guys have been on there as well, but I get, not that I try to just focus on women, but I just am so interested in their stories and how they got into it, just because it's unique. It is maybe not as unique anymore, but it was.
No, I'm with you on that. I think I had a couple of female guests on early on in this show, which I was pretty excited about. Grace Santalongo and her late husband, Gabriel Alvarez, were guests on my show early on, and that was really great. She actually had a brand for a while, and I was a really big fan of it, and so it was really cool to kind of go down memory lane and talk to her about that. And then also had the opportunity to, if you haven't had the opportunity, I hope you get the opportunity to one day interview Amanda McAuliffe of McAuliffe Cigars. She's fantastic. She's a fantastic interview. Nice. Incredibly fascinating individual. And then Laurel Tilley, who was with Maganudo, and now she's with AJ Fernandez Cigars, and a couple of others as well. But those are some of the more memorable ones for me on this show. But yeah, no, I've noticed that you've been talking to a lot more women lately, which is really great, because there's some, like you said, there's some really unique stories there that you just don't really hear, because it's a completely different perspective, I feel like.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, it's been incredible.
On your listener base, I mean, do you feel like, I mean, because you've mentioned this a couple of times, because it is such a male dominated industry, do you get a lot of, do you think is your listener base pretty mixed? Is it mostly female? Is it mostly male? Or is it a pretty nice, healthy mix?
I think it is mostly males that listen, or at least they're mostly the ones that reach out to me and tell me they like the podcast or something like that. Yeah, I guess I'm not 100% sure, but most of the feedback I get is from males. So,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
We'll get more into the show here in just a bit. I wanted to kind of go back even further a little bit. Let's talk about like where it all started. Okay, you're right now you're in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yep.
It's where your father's cigar shop is, Pap's Cigar Company. So check it out next time you're in Lynchburg, Virginia, everybody. Um,
Yes.
what did you was your first cigar with him, or did you have a cigar? Like, tell me about a little bit about your first cigar smoking experience.
Yeah, my first cigar was with him. I was with him and my brother. We were on like a camping slash hunting slash fishing trip. And I was 18 and he pulled out some cigars and I had a Christoph Maduro. He started me off strong.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I loved it. And then ever since then, we always smoked cigars on those trips and little special occasions. And then he bought one cigar lounge in like 2015 and then got a second location and then left the cigar business and then came back into it in 20 something, 5 years, 2016. I'm a little off on the other shop timelines, but yeah, kind of been in the cigar lounge since I think 2010, I want to say. Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's cool. All around, like in Lynchburg, or in like all like where else? Like where?
In Lynchburg, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's always been there. Is that where you grew up?
Yep, this is where I grew up.
Okay. What was that? What was that like?
It was boring. It was, I don't know. It was such a small town when I was growing up here. And then now there's like a lot of universities, so it's a lot bigger. There's like a downtown area now, and there's shopping, and there wasn't anything when I was growing up. So it was a lot of hanging out in parking lots and hanging out in the car, and but we had fun.
Going to the movies, and
Yep.
there's worse things.
Exactly.
There's worse things.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, so I guess I know the reason why for this next question. So the last few years before you actually returned to your hometown, you were in the Big Apple. You were in New York.
I was in New York City for 3 years.
So I can take a guess why you ended up there, but I mean, is my assumption correct? You just wanted to get away, get some different life perspective and some different experience, or what?
Yeah, pretty much. I've traveled quite a bit around the United States and whatnot, and I just started to notice how small my hometown really looked. Just everyone was just the same to me at one point. I'm just like, everywhere I go, I'm like, everyone looks exactly the same. And everybody just keeps doing the same thing over and over and over. And I was like, I gotta do something else. I gotta get out of here. I gotta be around people that want to do different things and just different kinds of people, just a different environment. And I'd been to New York City a couple times and I just loved it. And I kind of just snapped one day and was like, I'm moving. I'm going to do it. And then when I had that thought, within 3 months, I was in New York City, found a job, sold my car, figured it out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So you end up in New York. So you like, there was no plan. You didn't have a job or anything like that. You just like, I want to pick up and move to New York.
Yeah, I did end up getting a job like a few weeks before I moved, so that was nice.
Okay.
A little less stressful. Yeah, and I had a friend that lived there, and in his apartment, he's like a traveling musician. He was going to be gone for 2 months, so they let me take his apartment while I looked for an apartment. So it just kind of worked out.
Oh wow, that's totally kismet. That's cool. Yeah. That worked out.
Definitely.
I like just hearing about the situation is kind of causing me anxiety and stress. Like, hey, you didn't have a job, like a place to live. Like, what do we do? But That's awesome still though. Did you
Yeah.
end up did you end up what part of town did you end up like living in?
So my first year I was in Gowanus, Brooklyn. And then the last 2 years I was in the Upper East Side in the
Okay.
city. Yeah. Yeah. When COVID hit, prices dropped like crazy. So I was able to actually move into the city and move walking distance to work. So I took advantage.
There you go. I mean, so you moved just before COVID, right?
I did. I only had
Okay.
like 6 months before COVID hit, but I got a lot in before that.
That's good. What was that? What was that? Okay, so again, just a few months and everything to kind of really take it in. What was that like? Like, because obviously, like even post-COVID New York is so much different than pre-COVID New York.
Yeah.
Like what was that? What was that experience like?
Like
Compare,
pre-COVID,
yeah.
it was wild. And everybody would ask me, like, how are you adjusting? How are you adjusting? You're coming from a small town. I just immediately felt I was in. I didn't, I had to adjust to like the subway system and time management, I suppose, but I wasn't really scared of anything. I was just really
Mhm.
excited. But I guess it was just something every single night, all night long. That's what pre-COVID was like. Whereas now, still some things kind of close earlier. There's not like there's still, of course, 24-hour places, but not as
Mhm.
much as there used to be. So that was really what was different, I guess, is it was like a constant busy city. Whereas now you can
Yes.
walk down the street at midnight and it's busy, but like if you didn't live there pre-COVID, you would think, yeah, it's not that busy out.
So the city that never sleeps finally went to bed, huh?
I did. I went to bed.
I just imagine that like I mean I love public transportation. I just got back from a trip from Europe and I was reminded
Oh yeah.
about how much I love public transit and especially when it like works
Yeah.
and is
When it
relatively
works, it's
efficient.
great.
Yeah. So I did was like so did you mostly use subways or like did you like use like did you use bus lines and taxis or anything like that? Like what was your favorite mode of transportation?
Well, my favorite was a taxi, but it's not always the most financially stable option. But so I used to take the subway all the time. And then, but once COVID hit, like after the first few months of COVID and people started going out, people just got crazier. And I had 3 bad experiences in 1 week on the subway and decided I was done. And I started taking buses, which takes longer, but it's still so worth it. I mean, every once in a while I take the subway if it really was going to take that long to get somewhere, but I tried to avoid it. Started taking the bus. I prefer the bus.
So give me an idea. Like I'm totally like speaking from ignorance here. Like so,
Yeah.
like if from point A to point B on a subway takes, I don't know, 15 minutes, let's just say. Like what's that bus? What does that equal to in bus time?
I mean, so if I was from the Upper East Side and I'm going all the way down to Davidoff, like by the World Trade Center, it would take me about 40 minutes on the train.
Okay.
On a bus, it could probably take an hour and 20,
Oh wow.
depending on what traffic is like. Cause yeah.
And if and if you took your own car, that's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah. I didn't even try to have a car there.
That's bad. I
Uh,
can't. My sister actually lives in New York and she
oh,
works she
nice.
works she works at the Whitney museum.
Okay.
So she actually worked at the Met for a while.
Oh,
Um
sweet. I used to live right by it.
yeah. So yeah, she lives in Pearl River, which is just outside the city, so she has like a heavy commute and everything.
Yeah.
But she gets to work from home now, especially because of COVID, so a little bit
Oh, good.
more. But that's I think that the idea of living in a big city like that sounds really exciting to me, but I just like recently last year moved out to the country and I really like the quiet. I I, I
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much I like the quiet until we got here.
I know
So
what you mean. Yeah, I do too, honestly. I was like the last years of my 20s. I want to do something fun and crazy. And for some reason, as soon as I hit 30, I was like, I'm done. I just want to sit down in the quiet.
So like yeah, that's something I would ask is like you went from New York and then you come back home. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean it was obviously familiar. I mean you grew up there and everything, but I mean like specifically the sound, like was it like super ultra quiet? Like did it
Yes.
like startle you almost
Yes.
how
Every
bu-
time I went downtown, usually with my mom, we go everywhere. And I would be like, it's like anytime I would visit too, I'd be like, what's going on? They're like, something going on? Is like, is it a holiday? Is everything closed? Why is it so quiet? She's like, it's because you live in New York. You're not used to it. I'm like, no, it's like creepy quiet. I'm getting used to it now though.
yeah. So what was the job that you got before you moved up there?
It was actually with the ASPCA.
Oh, okay. Okay. We're gonna be talking about a little
Yeah.
bit more about that. I knew you like what you worked for though. Eventually I didn't know if that was the job.
Yep.
So
That was the job.
so how'd you score that? You just like Indeed interviewed and it like worked out or like what like
Yeah. I mean, I was when I was at that point where I was like, I have to get out of here, I was really into this podcast called, I don't know if I can Unf Your Brain is what it's called.
right.
And she it kind of just talks about like thought work and like creating your own life with your own thoughts and creating your own emotions with your own thoughts. And there was just one episode where she was like, there's so many people have imposter syndrome. Like they don't think they're good enough for something. And she
Mhm.
was like, if you want a new job, apply for jobs that you don't think you're qualified for and you'll be surprised. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I saw this one job and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get it. But what's the worst they're going to say? No,
Yeah.
who cares? And I applied for it and they interviewed me and they loved me and I got the job.
That's awesome. What was your like so what was your role with ASPCA?
I managed the medical department for the adoption center.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, I had like a
super
team of
cool.
8 people, and all of the animals that come through adoption, they have to be medically evaluated before they can get ready for adoption, and then we just give them their medical treatments until they're ready to be adopted.
That's exciting. That's a what a
Yeah,
cool role. I bet it had I bet you had some really great days and I bet you had some really bad days though in that role.
yes, epically,
What
epically so.
did you like have you always been an animal lover? I mean, where did like what gave you the inkling to say, "Hey, I'm going to apply for this job."
Yeah, well, I've worked in the veterinary field. So growing up, I worked in restaurant industries and veterinary hospitals. So I had some experience with like office management and being a technician and surgery and all of that. So I did
Oh,
have the experience.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I was going to say that doesn't sound so
I
far-fetched
know.
after all. Okay.
I know. Now that I think about it.
Well, did you go to university for any of that stuff or like did you go to college at all or
No, I did like an online certification for veterinary practice management, but
Mhm.
I kind of learned that I could work my way up without school, and I have. So I didn't waste my
Congratulations.
money.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. I paid off my student loans like a couple years ago, so,
Congratulations.
congratulations to you for not having to endure
Thank
that
you.
pain. Because it's brutal, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Um, but so you get to New York, you've got this cool position and everything. It was kind of on inspiration from listening to a podcast and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
did you take the advice again? It was just like I'm just gonna start a podcast. Like, is that how it kind of happened, or what was the story there?
Well, yeah, I guess I kind of, well, it was also during COVID and I didn't get to hang out at the cigar lounges in New York. I'm like, that's kind of a reason I came here too. And I just missed talking to people. And I also just wanted to get better at talking to people because I always felt like I was a little shy and it's hard to make friends in New York City alone, let alone during COVID. And I was just kind of like, felt like I was declining, not talking to my kind of people. And yeah, I got to go to work because we were essential and I still went to work and I could talk to people, but it was just hard not talking to my friends or not talking about cigars. It's just, I just wanted to start something that I could learn more about that. And also I was thinking back to I wondered if I could do a podcast, and I thought back to my childhood when I wanted to do two things. I wanted to be a journalist, or I wanted to be in the veterinary field, and I conquered the veterinary thing. And I was like, you know, I always wanted to be like a journalist in a way, but the reason I looked into the reason I wanted to be a journalist is because I've always been obsessed with other people's culture and religion and traditions, and I just want to learn about everyone all over the world. So then it was just kind of a duh moment, like, duh, that's what cigar smokers are. They're from all over the world, and we all have this one thing in common. So I was like, this makes sense. I'm gonna try it. And I did it. And it's been incredible. It's been so much fun. I've met the coolest people.
I really like it. I mentioned this at the very beginning, how I really love the concept. And I honestly can't, I honestly think I just randomly stumbled upon your podcast one day. And I think I read the description. I was like, oh, this sounds right up my alley. Because that's what we try to do on this show, is just to talk about, we nerd out about cigars, and we nerd out about the tobacco, and I can do that for days with anybody. But what really fascinated me all the time with the individuals in the industry that I have the opportunity to interview is just like, I really want to know the answer to this question, and I really want to know the answer to this question, and like, how did they grow up, and why were they this way, and who their father was. There's so many multi-generational things, and you're a prime example of that too. You're a second generation tobacconist too, which is kind of cool. Right. Or third. Was your grandfather also a tobacconist too?
Yeah. And
okay, so third.
Actually, it goes back. My dad was looking into our family history, and he found tax records from, I think, his great grandfather, something like that, in the 1800s. There were tax records that showed someone in our family called Jacob Ott sold $18,000 in cigars one year.
Oh, wow.
Or $80,000 in cigars one year. So we're like, oh my gosh, this has been going on for much longer than we ever thought. But yeah, that's all he's been able to find. We don't know if they grew it or if they just sold them, but yeah, we've been selling tobacco in this family since the 1800s, apparently.
So multi-generations back in Virginia too, right? Is that
was the records he found were in Pennsylvania, which is where my dad grew up.
Okay, so that makes sense too. Yeah. I was going to say Virginia, Pennsylvania, those big tobacco producing states. Right. I mean, going back, so that makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you if you happen to know if you were related to the baseball player Mel Ott.
Oh, no, I'm related to the baseball player Ed Ott, who played for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But not Mel Ott, no.
Okay.
I know, it's interesting. I've never met anyone with my last name, like, in person.
Oh, except for family, obviously. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like, I've never met anyone with that last name, and I've been seeing it lately. Like, on this one true crime podcast I like, there was someone, Daniel Ott, and I was like, what is this? It's interesting.
Do you know the etymology of your, like, the family? Like, is it like British or like Germanic, or, I mean, do you know anything about that?
I know my last name is German, and I think that's what originally my dad was like trying to look into. And then he got distracted by the cigar thing. But yeah, my mom's side, her great grandmother came from Spain to Cuba, then to Florida. And on that side of my family too, my grandfather worked in the cigar industry for Tampa Nuggets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of like on both sides of the family.
Oh, that's totally right. That's awesome.
That's wild. Yeah.
No, that's super cool. Well, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I really liked about it, was just like there's like these multi-generational people.
Yeah.
And then even people who are not, like, that's even more interesting to me. It's like, well, how did you come to this? Like, I'm not, my father smoked cigarettes. He'd never, as far as I know, still has never smoked a cigar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I always wanted to share one with him, but he's been sick for a number of years now, and so I think I missed my window, I think, which unfortunate, but yeah, it's just one of those things that's always kind of fascinated me a little bit about it, which is like the stories that you found are really great. Before we kind of jump into some of these, I really wanted to go back to again, your time in New York and everything. So did you work in any cigar lounges, or were you just like a, a regular, or what?
I did. I worked at Davidoff. So the Davidoff location at the Brookfield Place Mall. It's right by like the Twin Tower Memorial, all that, like down by the river. Yeah.
Okay.
There's 3 locations. Well, 2 locations and then one in Brooklyn too. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That because I went through the Davidoff training course, so that's pretty intense stuff. Like,
It is.
Going into it, because again, you'd had this background with your father and everything like that. When you kind of went into some of those courses, like, was it really, were you like really fascinated? Were you overwhelmed? Of like, I was a mixture of both for me. I'm going to confess. I'm just gonna be honest.
Right. I definitely was too. Because to be honest, like my cigar experiences has been in small, like homey, family owned cigar lounges. I'd never really ventured out to other cigar lounges yet. I've looked up and read a lot about them, but I wasn't really, I like the boutique cigars. So I kind of never seen a cigar lounge like that, to be honest. It's just very luxury and beautiful. So yeah, it was different, but it was amazing. I learned a lot and now I'm spoiled.
Well, I think it's what's really great about Davidoff. Zeno Davidoff, created what ultimately became these elaborate and gorgeous, places.
Yeah.
But what he birthed really was Pabst Cigar Company. Like the homie shops that you're talking to, that you grew up in, that I grew up in, wouldn't have existed if it hadn't been for that man. So like the walk-in humidor, the kind of customer service experience that I was reading some of the reviews for Pabst, I'm not gonna lie, the other day, and it was really cool to see like such positive things to be said, that were very similar to some of the lounges that I worked in, like excellent customer service. Like you go in, like one was really cool. He said a guy walked in, he said he's like, I walked in a stranger and I walked in a stranger and I walked out a regular. And that was awesome. That was the feeling that he had. And I was like, man, this sounds like my kind of place. I can't wait to visit.
There's like one of our lounge members got a tattoo of Pabst Cigar on his leg. Yeah, it's funny. It's a good place.
So another place that you frequented, did you ever work at Barclay Rex? I know it's like one of your favorite spots.
No, I never actually worked there. We tried to get me working there, but then I started working for Davidoff, and Davidoff didn't want me working for another cigar lounge while I worked for them. So I never actually ended up working there. I just did my podcast there, and she was my very first interview. I found a woman that owned a cigar lounge in New York City, and I was like, I need you to be my first episode. She was so awesome. She was in my most recent episode too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just was a regular there, and I did my podcast there and met my favorite people there.
It was really cool how you kind of went full circle, because I remember that first episode, and candidly, that wasn't the first one I listened to. I'll talk about the first show. I'll talk about the first show that I listened to here in a second, but I went back and listened to that one, and then the most recent one, which was it was an event. It was a brief episode you did for the SOTL Global Movement. And of course the proprietor of Barclay Rex was there, the entire SOTL Global Movement team, Lefty, and I forgot the other co-founder. Help me out here. Anastasia, thank you.
Yeah.
And it was hosted by Hiram and Solomon, which is also co-owned by a female as well.
Exactly.
But it was really cool because as you were kind of like going around the room and people were just talking about their experiences, it was a really nice eclectic mix. You think SOTL, okay, so Sisters of the Leaf, okay, this is going to be, I was like, oh, we're going to hear from women, and we certainly did. But there were some gentlemen there that were really like excited and
yes,
to be there for that event specifically. And I don't know why I was taken aback by it, but I was, in a really positive way. I think it was really cool. What was the live vibe while you were there when you weren't recording, I guess?
I couldn't stop smiling. It was just so cool. Everyone was just happy to be there and excited to be there. And I was excited because I got to be back in New York, and I'm looking around the room and at all these different people, and I'm like, God, I miss this. Different people, different kinds of people in one room. It's just great. It was a lot of fun.
So the first show that I listened to, and to my audience, if you want to go back to Ashes with Ash, it's titled Liam's Love Story. And Liam is, I guess, just he's an ordinary cigar consumer.
Yeah.
But his story of cigars, I mean, absolutely hooked me. I was in it, like, and with all respect to Liam, like he's a layman. He's a nobody. Like, I mean, he's not anyone particularly special. He's like any other, cigar consumer.
Yeah.
Walks in and out of a shop, but he has this really, romantic story about his involvement with cigars, and his wife is a part of that too. And it was just really, really cool. How did you find him? And like, I mean that show went on for a long time. I mean, it was a pretty long show, and it was a pretty cool story.
Yeah. And I met him through Instagram. He started following my podcast and just started talking to me. And he was like, hey, like my wife smokes cigars with me, and just thought I guess he thought it was cool that a woman was doing a cigar podcast, and just kind of reached out to me for that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to you guys. And I have like Zoomed with them before and talked to both of them, but didn't record it. So, but I got to do it with her on it one day, because they're just the funnest people. They're so fun and just so kind, and they just love smoking cigars and enjoying it together. It is like just the cutest little love story.
We talked about it right before the show started, and there's a part that I wanted you to tell my audience about the pie thing.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that, because I thought that was one of the funniest things, and I can't believe it's a thing. I can't believe it's a thing, and I kind of want to be a part of it. Go ahead and enlighten my audience.
Well, they just every year, grown adults, by the way, which is the best part. Every year they have a pie fight with their friends. They literally just set up, I think, in their backyard, and just have this massive pie fight with their friends. I'm like, I want to do that. I need to do that. Gosh, this sounds so much fun. Or even just a food fight. Let's have a food fight. Isn't that awesome?
It sounds cool. I mean, my children get into a food fight every day, so I'm kind of in the thick of it. But I'd like the idea of giving them the opportunity to throw a pie at me. Maybe me returning the favor. That'd be kind of fun. So
right? It's just like such a great idea for a party.
That's really cool. And then and he kind of walked through like all these individual experiences, like at different lounges that he had been a part of. Like he was really a part of, like there was these really nice, I can't remember the name of the club or whatever. He said, I think it actually had closed, but they had really great cigar rooftop dinners or something like that he was a part of for like, and it was really just from an audience perspective for me, Ash, it was a really fun perspective, just like listening to someone fall in love with cigars. And that's really what the whole thing was. And I was like, I'm so fucking hooked on this show now. This is great.
Yes.
And you do that like every episode. You find these people. Some, you've interviewed some people in the industry too, like my weekly guests, traditionally, Jeremy from Cozdagli, you interviewed Michael Herklotz, which was a great interview. We'll talk about that here in a second. But recently you mentioned how like you've been kind of on this really great run of interviewing some fantastic women in the industry. And you said that that's kind of been your thing lately. Was that your goal initially, to interview mostly women, or you just kind of wanted to explore stories, as you said?
Yeah, it really wasn't my goal initially. I initially wanted to just go to different cigar lounges and my idea was I wanted to go to different cigar lounges in New York City and ask them who their most interesting regular customer was and interview them. But then of course, I realized that it's COVID and they're not really open like that. And then I also realized there's not actually a whole lot of cigar lounges in New York. There's only like 10, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so when I was looking at cigar lounges, I found Barclay Rex. And then that was my first interview. She's a woman who it's woman owned and run. And then after I interviewed her, and I was like, I wonder how many other women are in the industry, and just kind of like that got me going. Like, I want to start interviewing more women. So that's kind of where it came from.
Well, what I thought was really cool is that you've done 2 interviews with 2 people that I happen to know that don't step in front of the camera too often. And that's like Nicole from Smoking Tobacco. She got more involved as the show has kind of gone on, but early on she was much more in the background. And then Jessica too from Cigar Prop, who I think she's fascinating.
Right.
I mean, what was your approach to some of these people that like, and that's the other thing that kind of fascinates me too, Ash, is like I can, I have the ability to research my guests because, at some point they did some kind of press, or there's some kind of public information that's out there about their brand or about who they are. And so I have that going for me. But you have this really unique approach, as you talked about. So like, how do you prepare for like an interview, or like what do you go into the interview with, to kind of, I guess, I don't know, like what's the goal, or what's your approach to these individual interviews and stuff?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I go in with like a basic set of cigar questions. How'd you get into it? What's your favorite? That kind of thing. But I kind of like get those questions out of the way because I want to ease into just getting to know them and their story. I want to know everything about them. So yeah, I kind of just go into that, and then once we get a little bit more comfortable, and then we just kind of get into their life. And I do prepare a little bit. I'll look at their social media, see if they work for another company or what they do for a living. So I kind of like social media stalk them a little bit to see if I can come up with more questions, or if there's something that I hadn't seen before and I want to ask them about it. So yeah, I do a little bit of research, but yeah, most of the time it's just kind of like you said, just regular people that don't work in the industry or anything like that, and they just kind of smoke. So I kind of just wing it a little bit. That's really what I want it to feel like too. It's just a conversation, like this feels like a conversation. I love this rather than like an interview. So that's kind of my goal, is to just have a conversation, try not to make it too interviewee, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to call my shows, like, that's why it's called a take. Like, I don't really call, I don't really, I mean, I interview the people, but like I always call them conversations because they kind of are.
Yeah.
And there's some that I've had that have been my favorites over the years, and I talk about this all the time. And I love this job just because I love the ability to talk to people. Like you said, it's kind of, I think we're kindred spirits that way. Like, just
Totally.
having that conversation with people. And my two of my most favorite interviews that I've ever done was with the same person, was with Alan Rubin of Alec Bradley. And I'm not just saying that because his company's name is behind me, but it was he was the guy before his company's name was behind me. He was the guy I wanted to interview because he had there was this paradoxical moment in his career, this transcendent climax that was really interesting. He had built his cigar company from nothing. He came from, literally the nuts and bolts and hinges industry, fasteners.
Wow. Huh.
That's what his father did. And he started a cigar brand, failed, and then started another one, Alec Bradley, named after his sons, and built it into what he, sold to STG earlier or later last year, or earlier this year rather. And he, along the way, he ended up getting the Cigar Aficionado #1 cigar of the year for the Prensado. I don't know if you remember. So
yeah.
And after that, it failed miserably because of like some mistakes that he candidly admitted. And what was really interesting was like about 18 months, 24 months later, he ended up doing this like tell-all interview with Cigar Aficionado on basically how he screwed up.
Wow.
And how he was going to fix it, and his dedication to fixing it. And it was a mea culpa that was really fascinating me. I was like, but there were so many questions that were left unanswered to me. Like I was
Yeah.
like, I wanted to, why did he decide to do that? Like, why did he feel that that was
Right.
necessary? Like, what did his family think? And like just a few more things that I wanted to go deeper with. And I had the opportunity to interview him the first time, and it was this like deep dive into him, and it was just like one of the best conversations I've ever had. And then as
Yes.
it happened, like 2 weeks before he officially sold the company, he couldn't talk about it, and I had heard whispers, but I couldn't ask him about
Oh,
it
right.
either. he I got to sit with him again right before he sold the company officially, and it if you go back and listen to it with the knowledge that like 2 weeks later he's selling the company,
Yeah.
it it's a fascinating listen. Not to brag, but it just being like, it's not about me at all. It's about him, like why it's fascinating, and it's a
Yeah.
really great listen. And it was one of my two favorite conversations that I've ever had. And very similar to tonight, another one of my favorites is like you and I have had. This is the longest conversation that you and I have had.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a similar, since what I met, who I would consider one of my best friends in the industry, Miguel Shodell of Crowned Heads. I met him on this show. I
Yeah.
reached out to him. I was like, hey, I really want to interview you. Here's why. And came on my show, and like we just like instantly clicked because we like love baseball and US presidents and things like that. And it was just
Sweet.
really.
I know. Don't you love that? I've met the coolest people just being like, hey, come be on my show.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
So back to just a couple of like some of the shows that you've done. I wanted to talk to you about. So like we talked about how you've interviewed consumers and you've had some really great conversations there. But was I have to ask this, was the Michael Herklotz interview planned, or what, did he just happen to be at Barclay Rex that day?
Well, he just happened to be at Barclay Rex the day before. And then I was like, can I interview you before you leave? And he was like leaving the next day. And he was like, yes, if you wake up early, we could do it. So yeah, I went to interview him, and I need to interview him again because I don't feel like the sound quality was great. So like the background music was too loud, and it bothers me. I hate listening to that episode. I mean, it's a great episode. He's awesome, but
Mhm.
the sound quality bothers me a little bit, but it's all right.
But
We'll
I
get him
like
again.
that. That's why I was wondering if it was just kind of like spur of the moment, because you've done that.
Yeah.
Like you kind of take
Mhm.
your equipment. You've done that few shows like that where you kind of just take your equipment and you just kind of turn the mic on
Yeah.
and kind of let it ride. Your first anniversary show was very similar to that, right? It was like some pipe
Yeah.
event that you just happened to
Yep.
be at.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Is that nerve-wracking at all, that like that nothing's really kind of planned, and or is it just like that's kind of where you live in because that's what you've always wanted with the direction of the show?
Yeah. It's not really nerve-wracking to me. I get like really excited. There's nothing I get more excited about than doing a podcast. Like every time right before one, I'll get a little nervous and I'm like, oh, should I cancel? Like, should I do something? But I always do it. And then afterwards, I'm like high. I feel like I'm high. Like it's the best feeling. It's so much fun. And I don't know why I ever get nervous beforehand anymore, but I still do. But I know it's going to be amazing. It's so silly. But yeah, I guess not planning can be a little bit nerve-wracking because I do like to research a little bit so I can come up with more questions. But I guess with someone like Michael Herklotz, like he's such a great talker, like
Mm-hmm.
interviewer, like he's so good at it already. So it's just kind of a little bit easier. So I guess if it was someone random and I didn't have all the questions I really wanted or needed, and I didn't do enough research, I might be a little bit more nervous, but he's just so easy to talk to and has a really cool story. So I wasn't too nervous about that one, I guess.
The first time I interviewed him, I got dressed up because that's like his thing, right?
Yeah.
And I put on a jacket and a tie and everything. And it was September here in Texas, or October rather, and so it was a little bit more comfortable for me. Then the second time I interviewed him was after the 2021 PCA trade show when we actually went back, and uh, and it's the middle of summer here, and so I
Yeah.
was wearing a t-shirt. Like I am now. And he was like,
Yeah.
and he got dressed up that night because
Of
he
course.
didn't dress up the first time. Because I gave him shit about it the first time. He's like, "Hey, you gave me shit about this, and then look at you now." I was like, "Dude, it's 110 degrees outside, man.
Yeah.
You're lucky that I'm wearing clothes at this point."
Seriously.
But yeah, he's a fantastic conversationalist. He's got some amazing
Yeah.
stories too.
He does.
You know, I mean, all the time he spent in retail in New York.
Right.
And he's got some fascinating. And I thought, you know, it's funny you said that, like that. I thought the raw audio quality and the rawness of that interview was just really good. Like
Okay, good.
I think it was a vibe. Like,
Yeah, I do like some of those interviews. You can kind of hear the lounge in the background because that's what this is. We're sitting in a lounge with our friends. Like, that's what I like it. But I feel like the music was just too loud a little bit. But otherwise, it was good.
well, you got some pretty great equipment though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I was using my Yeti microphone, and my dad got me the Samsung one, and I really love it. It just gives really direct sound quality. Yeah, so I like that one. But the Yeti is helpful if you're doing like a group thing or sitting just next to each other or something like that. Yeah.
what are you using for headphones?
Actually, I forgot my headphones today, but I just have some cheap headphones, honestly.
Okay.
They're like $10. I use them for everything. I love it. Yeah,
Nice.
nothing special with my headphones, just the microphone.
See, yeah, good quality microphone gives you everything that you need. For sure.
It's so true.
So, how's that cigar finishing up for you?
It's still really awesome. It's getting a little bit leathery now, which is my favorite tasting note is leather. That's why I like that Domain. Do you get leathery out of that a little bit?
I do. Yeah. It's this cigar blend for all its nuance and subtleties, it has some really brilliant complexity to it, and I really adore it. It's fantastic.
Nice.
I will miss them when they are gone finally, but I have plenty still, so it's gonna be fine.
Good.
It's gonna be fine. I don't know. I'll be okay for a little bit.
A little bit.
So what what do you like, what are your goals for like the rest, like for, I guess, for the next year? You just celebrate 2 years, like you said. Like, what's your goals for like the next year as far as like the show? Like, what do you want to accomplish with it? And like, do you want to just keep doing what you're doing? Is there any different things that you want to do with it, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I kind of just honestly want to keep doing what I'm doing and just try to. I have a goal to start being more consistent because I know sometimes I do one every 2 weeks, every week, and then sometimes it's every month. So I do have a goal of being more consistent and putting one out every week I want to travel more places. I'm going to the PCA. I want to start going to events everywhere and maybe start interviewing people at the events or meeting them and then interviewing later, whichever works out. Just want to. My goal is to be consistent, putting out weekly episodes and just constantly talking to people.
How many have you done now?
Cigars.
Like, what's the count?
That's a great question. I don't know. I can look.
I know it's more than 20. And
Yeah.
the reason I was going to say that is my good friend and partner on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, when I started this project, he said, like, he's like, hey, if you just stay consistent, you do it, you keep doing it, like that's the main problem with some of these is they fall off. And he says if you hit 20, you're gonna be 100 times more successful than a majority of the shows out there. And so when I hit 20, it was like a big deal, and like, here we are, this is our 254th episode. It's crazy. So I mean, been doing this almost 6 years on just this show.
That's amazing. 6 years. Wow.
Yeah, it's been quite the ride. It's been fun.
Yeah, I think I have about 50 episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know it's well more than 20.
Yeah, I remember somebody told me people don't go past episode 13. So when I got to episode 14, I was like, I did it.
I made it. Yeah, I made it. Well, I think what's really and your show has evolved a little bit, But I think
Mhm.
what I really want to give you some props is that it's kind of, and kind of what you were talking about earlier, what your mission was. It's kind of stayed there. Mine evolved rather quickly from what I initially wanted it to be. I wanted it to be really, and everyone's going to laugh at this now because I'm known for like these really long interviews
Yeah.
and shows. I wanted it to be abbreviated, like choppy,
Ah,
and it just. I realized like there were like I'd sit there with somebody and they would just keep talking and I wasn't going to shut them up. And
yes.
then
Yeah.
so it kind of went from 30 minutes to an hour, and then an hour became 2 hours. And I've had shows that have gone longer than that too, and it's just been but when you're having great conversations with people, it's just kind of hard not to stop,
I
you know.
know. Yeah, exactly. I know
Which
I
is
had one interview. I don't know if you heard Princess yet.
yeah, two.
There's
Oh,
three.
three. That's right. Yeah, I was gonna
Yes.
say.
We actually talked for 5 hours. I had to cut it way down. Yeah, we didn't even mean to. We were just sitting there smoking, talked for 5 hours. It was great.
I think this is gonna get a little. This might bore my audience a little bit, but what I do dig about yours is you have I have later on when people listen to this podcast, like I have bumper music but I don't do an introduction, and you always do an introduction to each interview, which I find,
Yeah.
which is that's not unheard of. There are a lot of podcasts that do it that way, but
Right.
not really any in this industry. I think you're like one of the only ones that I know about that do an introduction. Um,
Yeah.
why did you decide to do that? I'm just curious.
I actually, well, it was more, I did it based on my nerves. So, like most interviews, they'll introduce the person in the podcast, like they'll be on the call with them already. And I guess I started it because I got a little bit afraid I was going to introduce something wrong, or I don't know. It's just, it felt weird introducing them when I wanted to just sit there and have a conversation. I want to do the introduction and the outro later and focus on just immediately talking to this person. Rather, I mean, I know it only takes like a few seconds, but it felt weird to me to do it, I guess.
Well, I think I know what you're talking about because I dig. I mean, I obviously introduce people
Yeah.
for the show. I mean, you were part of that, a little while ago. But I really like, because like you do this introduction that's obviously post recorded, and you
Right.
drop it in, and then the show starts, and it's kind of like we pick up in the middle of the conversation almost a little
Yeah.
bit, and I don't know why, but I just dig it. I think it's just
Yeah.
it has this really really natural feel.
I think
Um,
it also helps with getting to know what the episode's about to be about. I
mhm.
mean, sometimes I don't do too in-depth intros, but sometimes I do. And I think it helps you get ready to be like, oh, this episode's going to be about this. That sounds cool. And then we kind of go into talking. But yeah, mostly I just want it to feel like just a conversation, because I've had like a few people, because I ask people to be on my podcast that may have never been on a podcast or interviewed at all before. So I've had a lot of people get nervous. So like, I don't know, I've never done that before. That makes me really nervous. And so I kind of like the approach that I took of just being like, no, we're just going to jump on and talk and smoke. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want it, if it feels weird to you that it feels like an interview or anything like that, don't worry about it. Like, I really just want to get to know you, and I want other people to know your story. So
Yeah, I've had a few people that have been nervous their first timers or something like
yeah.
that, or like Karen Berger,
Yeah.
who's was a great interview, and she was really nervous because her English is her second language,
Right.
and I had her national sales manager, Brian Diggins, with at the time, was on with her to kind of just make her feel more comfortable.
Oh,
And
sweet.
but that was a great interview. But yeah, I was just like, hey, it's just a conversation between you and I. Like, that's all it
Yeah.
is. And it was great. It was fantastic. She's got a beautiful story.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've heard.
Um and I mean, her entire philosophy and career and journey is all about honoring her late husband, which is, but she's created this legacy all on her own. And while it
Amazing.
is in honor of you know, her late husband, she's still created something that's truly unique, and that is definitely, because I mean, I smoked some of her husband's stuff, and her stuff is just a completely different expression, and you can
Wow.
tell that it's her, that
Yes.
it's her,
Her
it's
love.
hers, it's
Yes.
hers, yeah, and that's what I really dig about it, her story in
So cool.
particular.
Yeah.
um well, cool. Well, we're going to wrap up a couple other things about your show and your journey a little bit here and a little bit later, but we're going to take a quick break and go into some of my, what I call my fun segments.
All right.
So we're going to step into our presidential trivia segment. Don't worry, it's multiple choice. Okay. But I thought, being the animal lover that you are, former employee of ASPCA, we would talk a little bit about animals and U.S. presidents. So let's go ahead and drop this in. So, of course, tonight's presidential trivia segment is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke once a day and start living united, as well as join me on for the journey for the next few days until July 4th. I started on June 14th on Flag Day. And from June 14th to July 4th is exactly 20 days. And I am making my way through a United cigar box, which is exactly 20 cigars. So it's perfect. Smoking a United cigar each day, hashtag 20 days of United cigars, hashtag 20 days of freedom. So check that out on my Instagram at ELOSOFUMAR and join along and grab a United cigar and smoke along with us. So tonight's question, Ash, is multiple choice.
Okay.
So which president, while serving in the military after a battle, discovered a dog that was actually belonged to the opposing commander, and he returned it under a banner of truce? Which president was this? Was it A, Dwight Eisenhower, B, Ulysses S. Grant, C, George Washington, or D, Rutherford B. Hayes?
I have no idea. Let's see. I'm gonna go with George Washington. See what happens.
And that is an excellent guess, because that is the answer.
Yes.
So it was the Battle of Germantown.
Okay.
And after the battle, which that George Washington actually won, it was one of the few victories he had. A lot of people don't realize he had a losing record in the Revolutionary War. A lot of people don't realize that, because we ultimately won, and that's all that matters. It's only treason if you lose. That's just want to point that out. But Washington discovered this animal, dog, walking across the battlefield, and it had even had a collar on it back these days, and it was a dog that belonged to General Howe, which was the opposing British commander. And under a banner of truce, he returned the dog, and it was considered this unbelievable gesture. And so there's actually, believe it or not, there's a child's storybook about this story that I own and I've read to my sons. And it's really cool. In the end, it has a picture, it's portraits of both the Howe and Washington, of course, but it has a copy of the letter that accompanied the dog.
No way.
Yeah, in Washington's hand. And it was considered such a gesture. And the word of the story kind of even got back to the British people, who were just, obviously very upset at us American colonists for, just going against the crown and all this other stuff. But when they heard about George Washington and this huge gesture, that they actually came to revere him because of this wonderful humanitarian moment for him. So it's a pretty cool story.
I love that. That's so cool.
Washington himself was a really big dog lover. He owned like 36 dogs over his lifetime.
I feel like I knew that somehow.
So some of my favorite names for pets, I have to admit, George Washington knew how to name a dog. So some of the names that he had, his favorite dog was True Love, but he also had another dog named Sweet Lips. Another one was named Vulcan. Mopsy, another favorite.
Mopsy, I like Mopsy.
Yeah. I feel like you would name your dog Sweet Lips or True Love. That just seems like an Ash name for a dog. I don't know. I mean, am I crazy?
Right. No, I think you're right.
Are you more of a dog person or a cat person?
I mean, I guess I'm more of a dog person.
Okay.
I like cats, but I like dogs the most.
Do you have any animals right now?
I do. Yeah, I have my dog. He's here with me. He's sleeping over there.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a little 12-year-old lab mix.
I've got my dog here. She's with me as well.
Oh,
She's with me every show. She sleeps at my feet too. Her name's
cute.
Molly. She's a lab mix as well. She's 2 years old, so she's a ball of energy still. I'm sure
Oh,
yours
yeah.
is yours is a little lot, yours is a little
Mine
bit
does not
more.
do anything anymore.
What's your dog's name?
Riker.
Riker. Okay.
Yes, not named after the island. I didn't realize how weird that name was until I moved to New York.
Did you take Riker with you? Was Riker with you in New York, or did he stay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's been everywhere with me.
I don't, this is again my ignorance. Are you allowed to take dogs on the subway?
They say no, but yes.
So
Like if you look online, they're like, you can't do that. But I never had a problem with it, and everybody else did. They say it has to be like small enough to put it in a bag, but
and obviously
whatever.
Riker is not that small. So
It's not. No.
did did you ever? I'm sure you did. Did you ever take him to Central Park or anything?
Oh yeah, I used to live. So I one veterinary hospital I ended up working at was on the west side, and I lived on the east side, but it was just straight across Central Park. So, and he got to come to work with me every day. So we walked through Central Park
Oh,
twice a
that's
day,
cool.
every day. Yeah, it was the best. I miss it. That was a good commute.
Have you ever had a cat? Have you ever owned a cat?
Oh yeah, when growing up, I mostly had indoor outdoor cats. So like, I mean, even working, I know I work with animals, but I can't stand a litter box. Disgusting. It smells horrible. But right now I live with 3 cats inside. They're my roommate's cats.
I
Well,
have
one of
a
them's mine.
I have a cat as well. I am much more a dog person. The
Yeah.
thing that has saved my life, I hated litter boxes as well. Um, but got tucked into one of those automatic litter boxes, and they are a lifesaver.
I need that.
Yes,
That's so
lifesaver.
gross.
It's totally worth it. It's totally worth the investment. It's expensive. I don't
I
care.
believe you.
It is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You-
totally believe you. Cats are
the-
gross, man.
Tell your roommate that's what you want for Christmas,
Okay.
and it'll be worth it for them too. I promise.
Yes. Yeah. She needs that because she never cleans it.
Oh God.
Tell
Oh,
me.
I can smell it already.
Oh my gosh. It was when I first moved in there and I'd walk downstairs. I was like, I'm gonna die. Can't breathe.
I can smell it through the screen. Oh God.
I'm like, nope, it doesn't even smell this bad in an animal hospital that I work at. We're fixing this. So
No.
yeah, now I clean it.
Oh gosh. God bless you.
Oh.
Nuts. That's awesome. Well, that was our presidential trivia segment brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabay, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. Follow me on Instagram at ELOSOFUMAR for the 20 days of United Cigars. Hashtag 20 days of United Cigars. Hashtag 20 days of freedom. Join me along for this journey as I smoke a United Cigar each and every day, celebrating the 20 days from Flag Day, June 14th, to our nation's Independence Day on July 4th, and celebrate freedom together. So, but speaking about your love of animals and everything, and this is one of my favorite segments I do on the show. Each week I ask my guests to pick a charity or nonprofit of their choosing, and it's pretty obvious which one you decided to choose, which was, of course, was the ASPCA. So obviously you worked for them for a few years in New York, and obviously certainly no love lost because you chose them tonight, so you obviously have a strong passion for it. But tell us a little bit about why you chose the ASPCA and why even after working for them, you still believe in the organization and what it means. I love it. I love the organization.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah, it's crazy. Everybody kind of sees the ASPCA, you see those really sad commercials, and you're like, why would you do that to me? But you kind of think that it's just like an animal shelter, just like any regular animal shelter. And while they do have regular animal shelters, I didn't realize until working there how much they actually they do, and how many different ways that they help animals. And one thing that's really important to me, and why I am such an advocate for the ASPCA, is they deal with a lot of dog fighting cases where these, and I won't go into detail, but I had to see videos and pictures of detail of these. These dogs are not just fighting other dogs. They are being, if they don't win, they're being very brutally tortured, and it's disgusting and horrifying. And you would not want to know exactly how horrifying it is. And so they save these animals from these horrible situations, and it's really difficult to get them back on track. And they have entire teams dedicated to each section of all of this, because there's a lot of moving parts. We work with the police department, and it's a lot. And then there's also hoarding cases as well. The ASPCA basically has social workers, because hoarders, it is a mental illness. So we really have people that work with the people in order to allow them to get them help and getting those animals into a safer environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do so much more, and there's so many moving parts, and they're all over the world. And it's just a really important place to me. And I had no idea how much animals were like really suffering until working there. But yeah, it's wild. But yeah, that's why it's really important to me.
It's a great organization. So
Yeah.
I have two dogs. I told you about Molly. She's at my feet. My oldest dog is in the other room. And she's 13 now. She was a hoarder's dog. And when we got her, and she was such incredibly timid, and she's had for years we've battled stomach issues because she ate everything, because
Yeah.
and I don't think the hoarder that had her was, like you said, it's an illness. I don't think it was,
Yeah.
they didn't intend to abuse her. Like, I
Of
don't think it
course.
was
Yeah.
malicious. I think it was just, it's like this, like you said, it's the sickness that they have, and they can't
Yeah.
care for these animals properly, and then they end up, really, really hurting them. And luckily we were able to, rescue her, and she's had a decent life. But I mean, even now, like, she had to have mouth surgery a few years ago, where we had to extract, about 9 teeth, because they were just rotted and completely blown out. And, that was after years of giving her proper nutrition. That's
Yeah.
how those first few years were so bad for her.
Exactly. Those
And
important years. Yeah.
yeah, and bless her heart, like, because we extracted all these teeth, there was nothing supporting one of her front teeth. And so it's like she's got this snaggle tooth now that just kind of sits out there, and it gets stained. Yeah, it's a little cute. It gets stained pretty bad because it's just it's not, teeth aren't meant to be exposed to the air constantly. And she falls asleep with her tongue hanging out, and because there's no teeth to hold them in. It's just it's cute. It's cute, but it's sad. And
I know.
she's a great dog. And she still has tremendous amount of energy. And I was like, man, she is one fast dog, until we got Molly last year. We got her when she was 1. And then I was like, I didn't know what energy was. Apparently, yeah, you're right. But they keep each other energized, and they have a good time together, and they do really well. And they actually do really well with the cat too, which is nice. And yeah, I will never not own a rescue animal. Like, I will never get an animal from anything else other than a rescue. Like, every single one we have a bunch. We call it a menagerie here. I have a tortoise, a Russian box tortoise, that was a rescue. I have a rabbit that's not doing so well, but she was a rescue. And then I have chickens that were rescues too. So
I know, working in an animal hospital, so many people come in and they're like, I got this purebred dog. Like, how could he possibly be sick? I'm like, he's a dog. You didn't pay for a dog to not get sick. You
Yeah.
just paid a bunch of money to make other people rich. You didn't, you're not paying for anything better.
Yeah. Well, a lot of purebred, unfortunately, it's interesting because a lot of mutts, as they call a lot of these rescues, like, Molly's not purebred. She's a beautiful dog. But she's not purebred. But it's the mutts that actually have typically better health, because more purebred, like purebred German Shepherds, for instance, have that horrible hips.
Oh,
yeah. And I mean, it's happened. It's like one of those things that it's not if, it's when.
Exactly. Yeah, always.
So that's why I find it's interesting that people who want purebred animals, because I'm like, gosh, man, you're asking for not trouble, but like eventual hardship of some kind.
Yeah.
And if you're prepared for it, I suppose that's okay. But there's so many animals out there, as you know, that just are in just desperate need for a home.
Exactly. So many. Oh, so sad.
Yeah. If you're comfortable with, I think it's really important, Ash, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot too much. I think it's really important to educate our audience on this. You said you didn't want to talk about it because it's just really gruesome, but would you mind sharing a little bit more detail about some of these dogfighting victims and like some of the situations you rescue? I think it's really important. And if I'm putting you on the spot too much,
no,
don't. But I really want my audience to hear about this.
Yeah. So no, not at all. I mean, I just don't know who wants to hear about it, but you're right. I do think it's important. I mean, with dogfighting cases, if the dog loses, I mean, first of all, when they want to create a dog, get one dog pregnant, they strap them to a table and let the other dog just come in. And I mean, they're dogfighting dogs. So they have to put a muzzle on them, and they're aggressively trying to attack the female when she's strapped down, but also, screwing her. But they're also trying to attack them because they're trained to eat other dogs. So they have to do all that. And then if they don't win, some of them will hang the dogs. Some of them dip them in acid, and some of them just completely mangle them. So when you hear of a dogfighting case, they're not just dogs being tortured by being attacked by other dogs. It's the humans that are doing the worst of it. And these dogs, it's crazy. When they came into our work, they're really good with people. But if they go near another dog, they're trained to just kill them. So it's really hard, especially in New York City. We usually have to try to find homes outside of the city because you can't walk that dog down the street.
Right.
And I mean, every dog that came in just had burn marks all over them. I mean, they'll burn them and beat them and whip them, and just it's disgusting.
So inhumane. I first learned more about dogfighting, of course, with the whole Michael Vick case,
Right.
years ago, which was just horrifying to learn some of this stuff. It's just so I've been a dog owner for, since I graduated from college, and I had dogs growing up too, but that's when I really bonded with the dog, obviously, because it was just me and her at the time. My first dog was Maya, and she was a rescue, of course. And I couldn't imagine some of the things that people would do. And it was just disgusting, like you said. And it was just unbelievable. And it's all for profit. It's just all money. That's all it is. It's just greed.
I just can't understand someone's tiny brain capacity, how they could even fathom doing any of that to a dog, let alone just making them fight each other. But everything else, how?
So there was this TV show that I was a fan of while it was on, called, I don't know if you've heard of it, Sons of Anarchy. It was on FX. Yeah. So there was an episode, a very graphic episode, where they weren't in the biker gang wasn't involved in. In fact, they kind of broke it up. a dog fighting ring, and it was a very, very gruesome scene with some of the dogs. But then outside the dog fighting arena, they just had like these dumpsters filled with dogs, and of course they weren't real, but they made them seem real, and it was a very graphic shot and disgusting, right? And they Kurt Sutter, the creator of the show, caught a lot of flack for that, obviously, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I was like, I as an animal lover, I kind of stood by him, because I was like, this is a story that's not being told. He certainly wasn't advocating for it. He wasn't glorifying it by any stretch. And I was like, no, this was something that needed to be shown, because it's not something. It's something that was talked about a little bit, but it was with Michael Vick, but it mostly was talking about Michael Vick, and that's all we heard was just about him. And I was like, the animals, man, these helpless creatures.
Let's talk about the animals.
Exactly. So thank you for sharing that, Ash. I think it's really important to hear a little bit more about that, and just how disgusting it really is, and the reality that, I mean, this is something that's still going on today in this country. If you can imagine, in 2023, where everything is getting canceled and like everybody does anything remotely wrong and stuff, but this is still going on. And it's still a horrible thing. So
there was just a dog fighting ring found in New York, and what we have to do in most cases is they have to move the dogs entirely to a different state where nobody knows where they are, so that the dog fighting people don't try to come back and get their money. We have to hide them in like very discreet locations, and set up a whole animal hospital and shelter in like random abandoned buildings, and figure it out and hide them until they're actually in jail.
So obviously you're not in New York anymore. Do you and I know you're still an advocate for the ASPCA, but I mean, what ways do you support them now? Are you involved with any of their charities or anything like that? Or
I'm not right now. I was just, after I stopped working with them, I was volunteering, but now that I'm back here, I want to do something more, even if it's like, you see those commercials where you can just pay something monthly, something like that, or donating blankets or towels. I mean, that's always needed. There's just a lot of ways that you can support. Donating food. A lot of these dogs that come from certain cases or dog fighting cases, sometimes it's really hard to get them to eat because they're so terrified, because they have no idea where they are. And we usually only purchase one kind of food because it's cheaper that way. But if you have like different kinds of random foods and random cans to bring in, we call them the yummy foods. So that's always helpful, to just bring in stuff like that, to not even just the ASPCA, your local shelter or something.
Yes.
Just supporting in that way to get animals to just eat something, get them comfortable. But
I think I volunteered at a local shelter for a while too. And I think that was the thing that was the most needed, was like newspapers and blankets, like the things like, that you don't think about. And if you've got like old blankets, if you know someone who's a hoarder of newspapers, that's a great person to take advantage of with and right there, there's such lady that goes to our church that hoards newspapers, and she donates them all the time to my wife, who works at the zoo, and it's a godsend. It really is. Like that. It sounds simple and stuff, but it's really great. So
and I will say something that I noticed that I never even thought of somehow before, is when I was working there, we had volunteers, and certain volunteers were just in socialization. And you're like, so what is that? But you get these animals from these hoarding cases or fighting cases, and especially cats, and they are just totally freaked out. And they have no idea what's going on. So we have volunteers go in and just hang out in the room for like an hour, try to give them food, try to give them toys. And it's just so shocking how much faster that animal comes around and it becomes ready for adoption just by hanging out with them. So if you want to volunteer and just hang out with animals, that is like, it pushes them up to finding a home that much faster.
That's
It's
awesome.
just crazy. It's amazing.
So I dropped the link in the comments, everyone, and then I'll post it in the show notes later on. So feel free to check. If you should know what the ASPCA is, we featured them on the show before. But if you don't know about the organization, it's got a great history. It's one of those organizations that actually the money and everything goes towards the organization. They're an
Yeah.
A plus nonprofit. Check it out. Great story and the work that they do, which was actually, and ASPCA was actually founded in New York, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Learned that.
Started with horses.
Yeah, of all
Yeah.
things.
I know.
So, like I said, they've done some really great work and everything. So check it out. And Ash, thanks for bringing the topic up. And again, thank you for talking about the horrors of dogfighting, because it's
Yeah,
something that needs more awareness. Thank you.
definitely.
So, as is a tradition here on ELOSOFUMAR Takes later tonight, I'll be making a small donation in your honor. So
Amazing. I love that.
So-
Thanks.
no problem. So getting back a little bit to you, this is I call this our rapid fire segment. This is a this or that. And just, I'm going to give you a choice of two things and just really quickly, like what your answer is. And,
Right.
and then we might dive into it. Some of it's cigar related, some of it's random. So we already did one. I asked you dogs or cats and you said dogs. So
There you go.
we talked
Yeah.
about that. So it's the litter boxes is the reason.
Yeah.
But let's you talked about a love of traveling. So do you prefer to travel in the summer or winter?
Ooh. I guess it depends where, but I'd say probably the winter, because when I travel somewhere, I like to go somewhere I can walk a lot. And if I am sweating and it's too hot to walk, I hate it. I would rather bundle up and then walk. I could walk so much longer, so much further. So yeah, probably winter.
Quick question. Have you ever been to the West Coast?
Yes.
Okay. So East Coast or West Coast?
Ooh. I think I like the West Coast because the lack of humidity. I'm so sick of the humidity here. But I don't know. I love the East Coast too. But I'd probably say West just because of the dry heat. I like that better.
So where specifically? California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada? Where on the West Coast?
Yeah, I've been California. I love Santa Barbara. That was beautiful. Nevada. Been to Las Vegas and Reno. Love that. I think Reno was kind of the first place. Well, I went to Colorado, but it's a little bit different. But Reno was the first place I went and was walking down the street, had no idea it was 100 degrees because it wasn't humid. Like I didn't even think about it.
It was just
I was like,
hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hot, but it's different. It's different hot.
I know a couple of years ago, 2021, right? The PCA returned for 2021, and it was a record-setting year. It was awful. It was like 117 degrees during the day. It was still like 105 at night.
Yeah.
But it was really dry, and I'd go outside and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking smoke a cigar because this is fine. And I mean, I'm of course sweating and everything, but I'm sweating for a reason, because like I'm here in the eastern part of, they call it North Texas. I still say I'm in East Texas. I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area. It's humid here too. And I grew up in El Paso on the other side of the state, where I grew up in dry heat. I grew up in 100-degree heat. It was dry and I was used to that. So, yeah. So Vegas doesn't really bother me. It's hot. Don't get me wrong. Don't like being out there, but it's a good heat for me. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go into cigars. Natural or Maduro wrapper on a cigar?
Ooh, Maduro.
Why?
I just think they're a little bit sweeter in a way. Like I don't like flavored cigars, but I like a sweetness to it. And I usually get more of that leather note out of a Maduro than I do a natural.
Have you pinpointed why the leather note really speaks to your palate?
I don't know. And I don't get a lot. I guess my palate hasn't really developed like some others too. Like I don't get a lot of tasting notes. Every now and then I'll be like, oh, it tastes like really earthy or like hay or grass. But and then every once in a while I randomly get cherry, but I don't get a whole lot of tasting notes with mine. Sometimes, most of the time, it's just like I like it or I don't. I don't know.
Do you smoke a lot of La Flor Dominicana?
Yes, I do love them.
Yeah, the Oscuro specifically has that kind of dark fruit, like cherry kind of thing going on. I love that wrapper. I love that cigar.
Yeah,
It's really good.
I get cherry out of the My Father Le Bijou. I get
Yeah.
cherry out of that.
Yeah, there's some dark fruit to it. Yeah, I love it. Did you try the 100 años that they released last year, that limited edition?
I don't think I did.
Oh God,
Somebody else asked me that the other day. I don't think I tried it.
I'll see if I have any more. I'm gonna be honest. I think I smoked them all, but if I have one, I'll bring it to you in Vegas because it's
okay.
I think it's one of the best cigars I've smoked in like the last 2 years. It was so good, so good. All right. Ninjas or pirates?
Pirates. I want to be a pirate.
Snap. Pirate. Okay. Why do you want to be a pirate? Why do you want to be a pirate?
I don't know. I just want to have a sword and be out to sea on a ship.
All right.
I mean, and drink rum. What else?
Yeah.
What else is there in life?
Sounds good to me.
And I really love this rum. It's called Blackheart. It's not, I mean, it's kind of like a cheap rum, I think, but it has like a really cool story to it. It's this pirate girl. I have to look up the story, but it's just, it resonated with me. Look up the Blackheart rum story.
Okay. I'll Google that later. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this one. This kind of came up unbeknownst. I had this written down before, but I think I know the answer now based on what you said earlier, which is kind of cool. Would you rather be an expert in human anatomy or an expert in world religions?
Ooh, probably world religions. Yeah. I do love like medical stuff, medical shows, and I love veterinary anatomy. I love doing surgeries. So it would be kind of cool to learn that, but I think world religions, definitely.
Okay. I also had this written down before we talked about it. So let's take it out of context, out of the city of New York.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather travel by train or bus?
Ooh, train.
Yeah, I'm a train person too myself.
I love the train.
Speaking of piracy and being on a boat, would you rather learn to sail a boat or ride a horse?
Well, I already know how to ride a horse.
Okay.
So I need to learn how to sail a boat, I guess.
Okay. Did you grow up riding horses or?
I did. I rode horses for 10 years. I did competitions all over Virginia.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, we learned. I wish I'd see, this is where research could have paid off. I could have actually known this. What? Okay.
Well,
so
I kind of stopped when I was like 17 years old and didn't really do it much after that. So it's mostly my childhood riding horses.
So what kind of horse riding did you do? What kind of competition did you do?
I did English style and it was mostly jumping competitions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That stuff's hard.
It was so much fun. I was just a kid. I didn't even think it was hard. I was just like, this is what I do. I just jump on the horse and here we go. Did you ever
get to the level of like near Olympic level or like?
I don't think so. No, it was more just like
regional stuff
and do some random regional shows. Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever win any competitions or? Yeah,
I have a bunch of ribbons and a couple trophies. But yeah, nice. I got first place a couple times.
Nice. Yeah. That's cool. What's your favorite horse to ride?
Ooh, I don't know.
Is that one of the dumb questions, by the way? I gotta ask.
It may be. It might be. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, when I was young, I was a little kid too. I was just small. And we went to Colorado, went to this ranch in Colorado. Or no, Montana. Went to this ranch in Montana. And they put me on the biggest horse they had. And I looked so funny. So that's just a tiny little, I was like 7 years old. They put me on this giant horse. It was so big. I wish we could find pictures of that because that was really funny. But I loved riding that horse. It was actually a really nice, sweet horse. But yeah. What
was the did you ride like the same when you were doing competitions? Did you ride like the same horse or did you have several that you rode?
I mostly rode the same horse, but there was a couple throughout the years. At first, I started with this one horse named John, and he was just really old, and he kind of like was like, he was old, so he was easy to ride, and I was young, so that was kind of ideal. And then I switched to this other horse. It was a Palomino, and I can't, oh, Cal. The horse's name was Cal. I was thinking about it the other day, actually. I was like, can't remember his name, and I just remembered. He was awesome. He was younger, but he just got me. Like, he was just one of those horses where we were just in sync. And we knew each other. We knew what each other wanted. He was one of my favorite horses. And then my dad actually sounds weird, but my dad actually got me a horse for my 16th birthday.
Oh, every little girl's dream, man.
I know, right? But he actually turned out he was too young, and I rode for 10 years and never been thrown off a horse. And then that stupid horse threw me off. Ugh, frustrating. I like broke my ankle, like collarbone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got hurt. I got knocked out for a minute. And it was funny. This is totally one of those stories where you get back on the horse. I literally got back on the horse. I fell off and I was knocked out. And then when I like came back to, I was just so mad that he freaked out because he didn't do the jump I wanted him to do. And I was so mad. I didn't think about anything. I just got back on and I made him do the jump that I wanted him to do. And then after that, like right after the jump, I realized how much pain I was in. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta get up. Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Just a couple more questions here in this or that. So it's talk back to cigars. Honduran or Nicaraguan Puro?
Ooh, Nicaraguan. That's what I usually go for.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about Maduro wrappers and Nicaraguan cigars and stuff. Like, what's like you go into humidor and you're like, because I know I've worked years in retail too, so I know you probably have suffered from the same plight every once in a while where you don't like, I don't know what to smoke. There's nothing here to smoke, even though there's like thousands to choose from. Like,
right.
what's the trusty go-to? I won't say your favorite, but what's like one of the trusty go-tos? Like, you're like, I know if I smoke the cigar, it's gonna be the same experience and I'm gonna enjoy it. What's one of those cigars for you?
Ooh, if I want to go light, I can always just go for like a Ashton Classic Corona. That's always a good go-to that shops usually have. But my go-to for like boutique is Curavari. Love
Curavari.
God,
yes.
The Buenaventura series specifically, but really any of them. I mean, Curavari Crema, one of my favorite light cigars.
Oh, yes.
The Praline. The Praline's my favorite. So good.
Have you had the Gloria de Leon from Curavari?
Yes.
That's my bag. I love that fucking cigar. Holy shit, that's so good. And that little Petit Robusto or Rothschild, whatever they are. Oh,
yeah.
Oh god, it's
spicy.
So fucking. Yes. It's so fucking good.
One. I love that one.
Oh, it's so good.
And they have that Cafe Noir. Have you had?
Yeah, the Cafe Noir. It's good.
That one's so good with coffee.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, Curavari. I wish they were more popular than they are, and I wish more people talked about them.
I know.
But they've kind of been this biggest
mystery. Like a lot of my episodes.
yes, you do. That's true. I wish the owners were more prominent, like out there, like a lot of the people that I talk to, and they have these great cigars, and there's really no one really telling the story, which sucks.
Yeah, I know. And they don't have like reps or anything, but they're just such good cigars and for such an incredible price too. It's just usually some people will look at a cigar for a price like that and you're like, well, I'm not smoking that, but it'll be like the best cigar you ever have. It's so good. I
don't know if you've had this situation at Paps, but I remember working at Michael's Tobacco here in Euless in Texas, and we would get an order of Curavari, and it would be literally like Christmas, because we would have put an order in like 6 months ago. Then we finally get a box, a huge massive box. We would open it up. We wouldn't know what the fuck was in there though. Like, and it was like just, oh, we got 6 boxes of this. Like it was just like this, like we didn't know what the fuck we were gonna get. It was great.
That's so much fun. Yeah, we order the Curavari Crema. We have to order 30 boxes at a time because they'll be all gone in less than a month. I mean, it's just wild. At one point, we were Curivari's top seller in the United States. I was getting so many people hooked on them.
Good.
Yeah, they told us that. Yeah.
Nice.
We love them here.
Awesome. I noticed that you also do a lot with DBL too, which is a brand that's kind of a little bit more smaller and everything, but definitely very boutique and everything. What's been the main draw for them at Paps?
He mostly, well, we have like a lot of his cigars that we sell, but he does a lot of our events. So he comes in and does rolling events, and he just has such an awesome story, and he talks the whole time, and he is just, I mean, that's all he does is rolling events 6 days a week, everywhere, all over the East Coast. Like, that dude doesn't stop rolling. And he's got a crazy story. And so I can't remember where my dad met him, but yeah, my dad just like met him through something, and we just loved him, and he loves doing events for us, and he has great cigars.
Awesome. All right, last this or that question, then that'll take us into our next segment. Italian or Asian food?
Ooh. Oh man, I love bread, but I also love rice. Probably Asian food. Italian can be like super filling.
Yes. And like Asian food, it's very general, right? Because like
yeah.
So like broad Italian, like there's no light Italian dish.
Yeah, there's not. It doesn't exist.
Like even like the antipasta, course is still filling. But with Asian, like you could do like that could be sushi, and like sushi is the most like the mirage of food, because it's like, oh, I just had a bunch of sushi and I'm not full, but yet I am full and I don't understand.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yes. It's like really, really confusing on the system. Because you're like, I should be full. I just had like 10 rolls of something. So
I'm gonna order 10 more. And
yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm dying later.
Cool. Well, that will take us into our next segment, which is always brought to you by Postania Cigars. Everybody Eats, sponsored by Postania Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Postania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. That they embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Postania, everybody eats. So, couple variations of the questions that I ask under this section, and I thought this would be an interesting one. So I wanted to ask you this: what is a dish or food that you love that you wouldn't have tried if you had not been offered or forced to by someone else?
Oh my gosh, I'll try anything. I don't know.
What's the last thing that you tried? What's the last food that you tried where you're like, I'll try anything? You said I'll try anything. So
yeah, I mean, I guess caviar. I didn't know I like caviar. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's some caviar I do not like, but there's some that's really good. It's actually the cigar bar merchants in New York City. They have the best food in New York City. I'll tell you that right now. But
okay. That's quite an endorsement.
I know, but it's out of everywhere that I've eaten, at least, so freaking good. But what am I saying? Oh yeah, they have these deviled eggs with caviar on top. It's the best thing ever.
I love caviar. It's so good.
Good.
I will also absolutely eat anything. My favorite, I love my answer to this question though when people ask me all the time. It was Rocky Mountain oysters, which yes, is cow testicles. I had them. I like them. They're very delicious. I encourage anyone to try them because they are quite good.
Nice.
As long as you don't think about what they are.
Yeah.
It kind of takes that kind of, but if they're done well, which the ones that I've had have been, it's just nice and tender, and they're quite delicious. I was in Scotland last, for a couple weeks. I just returned last Friday, and yes, of course, I had haggis, which, if you know how haggis is made, that's also not the most appetizing description of a food, but it's also very delicious as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like raw oysters too. It took me some convincing because they look so gross, but with enough horseradish and hot sauce, so good.
I love oysters. Yeah, I love oysters on the half shell too. Yes, for most people, I think it's like a texture thing
Yeah, it is.
because they're like, I mean, when you say something is slimy and briny, it's not really the most
Not
appetizing description of
appetizing,
something. Yeah. So, awesome. Well, so okay, so caviar. The first time you had caviar was on this deviled egg.
Yeah.
Have you had it anywhere else or on anything else or?
I have. I got this like I can't remember where it was, but it's kind of like on like little pieces of bread with something else, and it was a bunch of different kinds that you could try and like put it on the bread.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it was really good. There's some of them I did not like though. There's like a bunch of different kinds, and some of them not my thing. But
Okay.
I don't know which ones are which or what they're called or whatever. But
What was some of the bad ones? Like, what did it taste like that you just didn't like?
just like way too fishy. Like I don't like fishy fish.
Okay.
Yeah, just like I don't know how to describe it. Just too fishy.
When fish, like, it's really funny. I've had really good fish for the last few years, and that's why like I've really grown to like seafood. I grew up not liking fish because of that taste that you're just kind of describing. I don't really like over,
Right.
and it's because I was, no disrespect to my parents. They bought what they could afford,
Right.
and but I've had such good quality fish in the last few years. I'm like, oh, so this is what good seafood tastes like. Like
Exactly.
this is what it's
Yes.
supposed to taste like.
Yes.
Because really bad fish tastes fishy, like you said. It's just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
gross. It's
Weird.
gross. It's not good. Cool. Well, that was our Everybody Eats segments brought to you by Postania Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Postania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Postania, everybody eats. So, we've got a couple more segments here, Ash, before we kind of wrap up our show. And I just want to thank you before we kind of get into the home stretch, if you will. I just wanted to thank you again for it's late there on the East Coast. You're in Virginia, and for you to set some time aside for me to have this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's Sunday's always family time too. So for you to kind of peel away and take some time just to chat with me about, your story and about cigars and everything, it really means a lot to me. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been so much fun.
So one of our last segments is our Asylum segment, which is brought to you by, of course, by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. Now, this segment specifically, Ash, is about like our individual moments with cigars. And you got into cigars similar to the way most people get into it, and that's because of the community. We've talked a lot about our conversations and our wonderful conversations in lounges, which led to the creation of your podcast, Ashes with Ash, and that's the whole premise behind it. But every so often we have the opportunity, and this is why I was really excited to ask you this question. We have the opportunity it's just us and the cigar. And that moment can be about so many things. It could be a celebratory moment, it could be just a moment of solitude or whatever. You've probably had dozens of these in your lifetime. But what's a moment, you don't have to pick your favorite or the most important, but what's one that comes to mind? What was the cigar you were smoking, if you can remember, and what was that moment about?
Ooh. One of my favorite moments, it was a Curavari, Buenaventura, the praline. And it was right when I moved so when I first moved to New York, I moved in with roommates in Brooklyn. But then I moved into the city and I got my own place. I was by myself and I had this little fire escape. And it was my first night in there and I only had a bed. I didn't have any furniture or anything, but I sat on my fire escape and I smoked that cigar and just kind of looked at the city, and I was just like in shock that I was there. Like when I was a teenager, I thought it was like the coolest thing that someone could live in New York City. And like, I never thought that I would be doing it. And especially on my own. I just got this apartment. I'm on my own. I have this awesome job. I'm like, who am I? So it was just like that was probably one of my favorite moments of just sitting on the fire escape. And it's just kind of like a summer night too. So it just felt really calm outside, and my apartment was kind of like in an alleyway a little bit, so it was just a little bit quieter, but you could still hear the city in the background, and it was nice.
That's awesome.
Memorable moment.
You know, you talk about how like you were sitting there and it was like this moment of achievement and everything. Like, what did you feel like really? What did you feel like you had accomplished at that point? Like you said, like, who am, like you made the proclamation, like, who am I? Like, did it feel like you defined yourself more that night, or knew you were on your way to defining yourself?
It was more like I looked at my teenage self, like I could see her and just looking back at me like, whoa, you know, like when you're a teenager, I have had a million dreams in my life, but living in New York City was always one that I didn't ever think it was possible. So I think it was just in that moment of looking at myself and realizing that you can literally create the life that you want. You can do it. Anybody can do it. and you just have to realize it and then readjust and rewire your brain to get there. And I did it. So I guess it was just a proud moment of not anything specific, not getting an apartment, not just living in New York City. It was kind of an achievement of conquering my own brain, of thinking that I can't do it, whatever I want. And I realized I can.
Well, I mean, it's been like so different too. Like you said, growing up in Lynchburg, like where you felt like everything was like the same, everybody was the same. A lot of, small town feel, like there's nothing wrong with small town, but like going from that to, like, I mean, we're talking about the complete opposite side of the spectrum here to that kind of an extreme. And you having this journey to get there, that was something you always wanted. And then finally you're sitting there realizing you accomplished it. Like you said, it wasn't anything specific. It wasn't like, oh, I've made this career accomplishment or anything like that. I sought out to move here. I wanted to live here, and here I am living here. And that's great. Yeah. Would you ever go back?
Yeah, well, I lived pretty comfortably there. I think I would go back if I made money to be more than comfortable. Like, I think if I had the right, I don't know, if I had the money, I might go back, as long as I still have a house in the country I can go visit, that kind of thing. Maybe not live there full time, but I would love to have a place there and be there often. I really love that city.
Did you move back? Was it a financial decision to move back, or was it more personal?
Yeah, it was more personal. My brother had just had a baby, and I was just really missing family in that point in my life. And I still only made like one or two friends, and I was really just feeling kind of lonely and missing my family and wanting more space. I lived in such a tiny apartment, so I was just feeling crammed and lonely and missing my family. And now my brother had this baby, and I'm just like, I want to be there. I just felt like I kept missing things in my family that I finally wanted to get back to. So made the jump.
So when you move back, like what do you do? What do you do for a living now?
So I work from home. I am a veterinary scribe currently. I actually just got a new remote veterinary job where I'm going to be like a client coordinator for this veterinary company. So yeah, I'm doing that. And then I'm working at my dad's cigar shop a little bit, mostly just doing events and special projects and getting inventory in order, stuff like that. I don't actually work like in the actual shop. I usually come in after we close and do all that stuff and getting events going.
So he's mad at me now because I took you away from work. What's going on, right?
No way. They don't even know like when I come here. They're just like, when'd you work this week? We'll get you a paycheck. I'm like, these days.
Getting slightly off topic here, but just like from the time that your dad started this company and then to where it is now and everything, I'm just kind of looking at your background and seeing what it is. Like we talk about dreams coming true and stuff like that. I mean, was this his dream? Like, has it kind of been realized a little bit?
I think so. I mean, my dad has done every job in the world. I feel like he's always had he's just always been everywhere. He does everything. He has had a million jobs, a million businesses. He's at a restaurant, construction company. I mean, that's why I look up to him so much, because when you're little, everyone's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, you have to be one thing. And what are you going to college for? To do this one job. And that's why I admire him, because if he wants something, it comes to his brain. He's just like, I want to do it. So he just does all these jobs and accomplishes so much with it. But yeah, I guess he always loved cigars, and his dad loved cigars. So the first cigar shop he opened, he loved it, and my grandfather loved it, and he worked there. And then my grandfather became the staple of that cigar lounge called City Place Cigar. And then years later, he wanted to open another one, and he found my grandfather's friend Rick. He's the other part owner of this place, and they went in together and brought the dream back.
Paps was born. So how many shops does he own? Does he own multiple ones now, or just this one?
It's just this one for now.
Okay.
We're working on some more.
Oh, cool. Good for him.
Yeah.
Awesome. Got a little off track, but that was our asylum moment. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars, so light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So we've come to the end of our night, Ash, and this always concludes with one last question, which is always our curveball segment, which is always brought to you by Dunbar Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park 8 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So here's the curveball question for you, Ash. Fast forward 8 years from now. How does the industry look different in your mind? And what will you be doing? Will you be in the industry, and what will you be doing?
Ooh, I like that question. I think it's going to slowly start looking a little bit different. There's so many more voices out there now, and so many more of those voices are women. And I really think it can change the industry. So I'm hoping for, lower taxes and more inclusivity, and not, having to jump through hoops just to smoke a cigar inside a lounge. And so I'm hoping for that. And I hope to be in the industry. I mean, I love working events. I love working events for my dad's shop. I hope to be involved in opening more shops for Pap Cigar Company. And I really hope to be, all over the world with my podcast. Honestly, I hope it takes off and I can meet people all over the world in person, not just on Zoom,
You talk more about inclusivity. Like what's changed from when you started smoking cigars to today? It's in terms of being a woman specifically.
Yeah, I guess. Again, I live in a small town. There's really not a lot of women smokers. When I started smoking, I was the unicorn. And I was pretty uncomfortable going into a lot of cigar lounges. People just look at you funny and ask you if you're buying something for your boyfriend, or ask you if you know how to cut that or light that, or if you need help. It's really different to me now. And I don't know if it's because I just got the confidence that I don't feel that uncomfortable now, or if it really has changed. And I think it really has changed that women are going out more and they're trying this more and they're talking about it more. Yeah.
I really, when I started working retail and I started noticing more women coming in, that was a
Mhm.
really big thing for me. I really liked seeing more like you said, to your point, more inclusion, and I liked seeing more women come into it because I what I've always boasted about this industry and what I've always loved about it, it's the great equalizer, right? You can have the janitor sitting next to the surgeon and they can have a conversation about anything as long as they have a cigar in their hand.
Yes.
And so that should include everybody, not just men, right?
Right.
And I slowly got to see that more and more. And a lot of times the women that came in were, it was always they were there with their partner, right? They were there with their
Right.
boyfriend, they were there with their husband. Um, but as time has gone on, I've seen more and more single women like really find a home in cigar shops, and that's probably been one of the more exciting things for me personally, just because, and we've talked about this on this show before, and specifically like with the episode with Amanda McAuliffe and everything. And McAuliffe's done a really good job of raising awareness, and this is that the industry, the cigar industry, is actually predominantly run by women. We just don't talk
Yes.
about it. Like
Right.
women do all the hard work when it comes to manufacturing cigars. There's women cigar rollers. There's a lot of men cigar rollers, yes, but there are a lot of women. Women do the sorting. Women do
Right.
the planting. Um, a lot of the jobs in a cigar factory are held by women. Um,
Right.
there are more and more lounges being owned by women, run by women. There are brands that are becoming more, women run. You had the opportunity to meet Liz,
Mm-hmm.
who goes by Remarkable Liz on Instagram. She's
Yeah.
considered one of the foremost and original, I guess, cigar influencers, but she started her own cigar brand, which is cool.
Yeah.
Um, Leo, who started Nova Cigar,
Oh
she's,
yeah.
and I think we're going to see more and more of that. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful for that because I think, I think cigars are the great equalizer, and why shouldn't that include people of both members of both sex? Like it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Exactly.
and as fond of we are of stories and conversations, I mean, conversations will definitely be more interesting with more women in
Exactly.
it. so
Yeah.
so that's cool. I I really um I plan on continuing to support you and your podcast and your goals and stuff because I really like the idea of what you want to do with it and travel and kind of explore the stories and everything, because it's exactly kind of what I do in this little corner with just the individuals in the industry. But you
Yeah.
have such a unique take on it that I really like, and I hope
Thank
I hope you accomplish everything you set out to, Ash, because that's awesome.
Thank you.
So,
And this show is awesome. I can't wait to share it with everybody. And I think you're doing great things too. And I love your questions. And this has just
thanks.
been so much fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for making some time for me tonight. And thanks to our audience for staying with us late as always. We really do appreciate it. Keep those likes and shares and comments coming. And if you are a subscriber to my YouTube channel, check out my YouTube channel. It's ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We can always find us here every Sunday night broadcasting live on Facebook. So go to my Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the like and follow button. Calendar of upcoming events is always on there. We'll be headed to the PCA trade show. So what are you most excited? This is something we didn't talk about real quick. Don't want to miss it, but this is going to be your first PCA trade show.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to?
Dude, I have no idea. I don't really know exactly what to expect. I am just so excited to just see everybody and meet people that I've been talking to virtually for years. I just excited to see everything. I don't know if there's one specific thing.
Oh, what I think you'll absolutely get. Like it's really funny. Like when I first started going to trade shows in 2018, Like people were telling me like, gosh, I wish you had seen the trade show years ago because it was this thing. I remember my first trade show and it was everything I wanted it to be. It was
Nice.
The trade show floor, Ash, is like Coop,
Epic.
my partner calls it like the cigar city because
Nice.
there's these huge signs in some of the booths, like they've shrunk in size over the years, but there's still these monstrous displays of just, you know, luxury, yes, but storytelling, which I know you'll appreciate, and they're
Yes.
wonderful, and you get to meet some of the greatest people, hear their stories, smoke their cigars. I will tell you, it's Vegas. A lot of the shows, a lot of the trade show cigars you'll smoke will not be good. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's
all
the
right.
weather. It's the weather. But when you
I
bring them home
agree.
and reacclimate them to your humidor and everything, they will
Good
they will
point.
be fine.
All right.
But it's an experience. I'm really excited for you to have that, and that'll be really cool. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you out there and hearing what your impressions are. And so maybe the
Yeah.
next time I have you on, we can talk about that too. So that'll be good. I'd love to have you back.
Yes, I'd love to have you on my podcast too.
Well, we can make that happen. Not a problem.
Let's do it.
So again, thanks to our audience, for everyone out there. Don't forget to check out YouTube and Facebook page. And if you're listening to us on podcasts later on, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, including iHeartRadio, don't forget to hit the subscribe, download. Go ahead and throw a review my way. That'd be great too. If you already are a subscriber, do me a favor, just hit unsubscribe, but don't forget to hit resubscribe because that actually helps my numbers and allows me to get great guests like Ash whenever I want. I can just invite cool people on the show and that helps everything. So for everyone out there, really do appreciate all those likes, shares, and comments. Keep up coming. As always, I am Bear Duplessis, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Azle, Texas. She's Ash Ott of Ashes with Ash. Check out her podcast. You can check it out on Podbean or wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Give it a download, subscribe, and review as well. This is some of the best conversations in the cigar industry. From everyone from random strangers to some of the cool people in the industry, from Michael Herklotz to Jeremy from Costagli, and other prominent women in the industry too. A really great, fascinating listen. Check it out. Ashes with Ash, wherever you listen to podcasts. You definitely want to hit the download, subscribe, and review button whenever you can with her as well. And you can listen to Ash every time she puts out a great episode. So we're looking forward to more consistency. Like she said, that's one of her goals. And we'll be listening for all of that, Ash. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone in our audience. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.